Welcome back to the time in my life where I go back and edit videos and yell about how many cars drive by my house. Thanks for joining me. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Ali. If you're new here, hello. If you're returning, welcome back. Proud of you, I'm happy for you. So I've seen quite a few people do videos like this, but I've also had some of you guys request a video like this from me. So I gotta give the people what they want. So I am going to be doing a, if you liked this book, you should read this book. We're in the intro, it's starting already. I did my best to try and pick like the super popular book talk books and find more of not so popular equivalent, at least like a book that I personally haven't seen around that much. And I think I did a pretty good job for the most part. I think there's a couple where they might both be fairly popular, but I did my best. And then this is going to be both romance and fantasy books. But yeah, let's jump right into it. My first is, if you liked House of Salt and Sorrow, you should read Entwined by Heather Dixon. Basically, both of these books are a darker version of Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses. And if you haven't seen that Barbie movie, I don't know what to tell you. Go watch it. Barbie's peak cinema. The world went downhill once we all stopped watching those. Friendship is magic, my guy. But is that a My Little Pony thing? I think that would actually be a My Little Pony thing. These are like darker versions of Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses. In Entwined, it's the oldest daughter, and then House of Salt and Sorrows, it's one of the middle children. But they are princesses. There's 12 sisters. They both have mothers that pass away. They both live in a magical castle where things start going wrong. I would say out of the two of these, Entwined is a little bit more YA. House of Salt and Sorrow is slightly more graphic. Not that either one of these are super bad, but I do think House of Salt and Sorrow is just maybe slightly darker. Neither one of these are necessarily spicy. I would consider them both YA. I read Entwined in middle school and it was one of my all-time favorite books. So I read this first and then read House of Salt and Sorrow and immediately was like, oh, these are the same book and they're both great. I personally like Entwined better just because I have that emotional connection to it, but House of Salt and Sorrow is still great. I would just say Entwined has more of the romance aspect and House of Salt and Sorrow has more of the darker aspect to it, but they're both amazing. Check them out if you haven't. Then my next is the godfather of all fantasy right now, the ACOTAR series. I feel like I don't need to explain this to you. We all know what it is at this point, whether or not you've read it. We all know the whole plot. My follow-up recommendation for if you like ACOTAR is the Wings series. I've talked about this series before on my Books I Would Sell My Soul to Read Again video. I will tag that if you haven't watched it. But Wings is the YA blueprint of ACOTAR. So these books match on vibe and plot, but they don't match on like spice level. I know a lot of people want ACOTAR recommendations because they're looking for like that fae spice vibe. This book has the fae human, the war, the power situation, all of that that's in ACOTAR. It's just YA. Like, I think people kiss and that's it. But so it's not the level of spice that ACOTAR is, but it's quite literally ACOTAR if it was written for the YA community. You are somebody that doesn't like spice and that's why you haven't read ACOTAR. Read Wings, it's amazing. This is also a series that I read in middle school and was obsessed with and fell in love with. I read the entire series in like a week. I believe it's a 4-book series with a novella. Wings, our main character is Faye, raised in the human world, and she doesn't know it, and she eventually figures that out, and it is a love triangle between a human boy she's in love with and the Fae boy she's in love with. And there's war, there's love, there's Fae, there's other magical creatures, there's like trolls and stuff. Like, it's great. So if you're looking for a more YA, slightly less spicy version of ACOTAR, I highly, highly suggest Wings. If you have not read either of them, read both of them. So then next, what I feel is fairly popular, I've seen it around a lot, is We Hunt the Flame. So if you like We Hunt the Flame, then I highly suggest you read The Tiger at Midnight. These books are very much the same for both vibe and plot. So We Hunt the Flame, if you haven't read it, it's very culturally culturally rich story. Our main character is Zafara. She is like an assassin-y vibe hunter girl, and she is kind of set on this quest, kind of cursed part of the world, to kind of figure out how to break this curse and free her people. She meets the prince, I believe he is, and like his crew that they're also trying to break this curse, and it is enemies to lovers. It's very good. I highly suggest it. And so with that, Tiger at Midnight, I almost like this book better than We Hunt the Flame. It is the same with culturally rich stories, and it is enemies to lovers, and it is assassin-y huntress. I feel like I like this book a little bit better because it has more banter with it. It's much more of a cat and mouse type situation than what We Hunt the Flame is, but I do highly suggest both of them. But Tiger at Midnight, our main character is Isha. She is an assassin who is known as the Viper, but nobody knows that the Viper is her. Everybody thinks the Viper is a man because nobody could think that a woman could like be this successful of an assassin. And she is sent on this mission to kill this high up commander because they are in war. She meets Kunal accidentally, and then they reunite later, and Kunal realizes who she is. Kunal is on the opposite side of the war, and he is sent to kill Isha / the Viper. And it turns into a cat and mouse thing where they are both attracted to each other, but can't and don't want to be. And it's a cat and mouse thing. They catch each other all the time and kind of like snarky, witty comments and then throw dirt in each other's face and run away. Like, I like the banter and the relationship of the enemies to lovers situation a little bit better than this one, but they are both very good storylines. If you're looking for culturally rich enemies to lovers, badass female assassins, check them both out if you have not read either. So then next, a currently very popular romance is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. So my suggestion, if you love this book, you should read Dating Dr. Dill. These books, again, I recommend them together because of vibe and plot. So The Love Hypothesis is set in grad school. Our main character is Olive, and she's in grad school. She ends up fake dating her professor. That's kind of the whole overview with a lot more detail than that, but simply put, because I feel like most people know what this book is. Dr. Dill, he's a doctor, but he has like a Dr. Oz type show, but like it's science to kind of support why he thinks love is fake. Like it's just an emotion. He doesn't believe in love. He meets Karina. They are set up by their families because they are both older people in the Indian culture, and it's weird for them to not be in a relationship or be married. So they are set up by their families, and they are both fake date for their own personal gain. Karina's using it to get stuff from her family, medical grants, and that is basically what kind of the whole fake dating situation is for the both of these. In Love Hypothesis, Adam is fake dating to get grants for his class, and Olive is just kind of in a weird social situation. So I think they match for the fake dating and the science-ness of it and the vibe. So if you have not read either of these, I highly suggest them. I personally almost like Dating Dr. Dill a little bit better. If you're a Taylor Swift fan, you'll love this book because there's a lot of T Swift references. I think that's why it might have pushed it over the edge for me a little bit more, but I highly suggest the both of these if you have not checked them out. So then hopping back over more to fantasy, I have Kingdom of the Wicked. Love this series. I have already pre-ordered the third book, but if you're a big fan of this series, I highly suggest you read White Hot Kiss by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is another 3-book series. It's completed. This is known as the Dark Element series. It's 3 books, White Hot Kiss, Stone Cold Touch, and Every Last Breath. I've definitely talked about this series a few times before, so check them out if you want more information on these. They remind me of each other solely for the male love interest. They aren't necessarily the same sort of storyline, because Kingdom of the Wicked, our main character is a witch, and she summons our male love interest Wrath in a spell, and that's how they meet. So it's more of like Wiccan based, whereas White Hot Kiss is set in the modern world, but it is demons and angels instead of like demon and a witch and being summoned. It's demons and angels are in the human world. So with this series, our main character Layla, she is half demon, half like angel basically, and is raised by the angels her whole life and has kind of grown up with their ideals that demons are bad. She meets our main love interest Roth. So it's Wrath and Roth. They are both of them, both Wrath and Roth are princes of hell. They both got the thing going on with the snake tattoos. Like, they are so different yet so much the same person. So if you are obsessed with Wrath just as much as I am, you will fall in love with Roth. I would say that these are both kind of equally YA. I don't necessarily think that there's spice in either one of these. I would just say White Hot Kiss has a little bit more of a love triangle situation, which I did bring up in my previous video of love triangles that don't annoy me. So it's a love triangle, but it's not bad. I feel like that's kind of the biggest difference, other than this being demons, angels, and this being like a witch summoning a demon. Beg you to read both of these books if you have not. I have talked about this book so much. If you want me to stop talking about it, read it, and then I'll stop. But until then, I will continue talking about it. So then the next two are romance that I read on my Kindle. I don't have the physical books. One that has seemed fairly popular for me being a romance reader is 1% of You. And so I would say if you enjoyed this book, you should read Wait For It by Mariana Zapata. So these have a little bit different of a plot line. I feel like I matched them on vibe. So 1% of You, our main character, she's splitting up with her ex-partner. She has a son and is currently pregnant, and moves in next door to this super grumpy tattoo artist. And he hates kids, but is just like super drawn to our main female lead. Very much Grumpy Sunshine. They don't get along at first, but he just falls in love with her and her kids and would do anything for them. And so that area of Grumpy Sunshine and the kid dynamic is what led me to Wait For It by Mariana Zapata. Our main character, she got custody of her two nephews, and she's in her early 20s. So she went from being single with no kids to being full custody parent of two very young boys. And she again moves next door to this grumpy neighbor who has a younger brother that is constantly getting in trouble. So he kind of has like he doesn't hate kids, but he has like a weird relationship with them because he's used to his brother that's constantly getting in trouble and whatnot. And he is the one that is currently going through a divorce. He doesn't want to pursue anything with our main character because he's still technically married and he has this weird relationship with kids, but again, he is drawn to her and her family. It's Grumpy Sunshine. Both of them become no grumpy around their sunshine. They are both such like wholesome, like heartwarming stories. Mariana Zapata is very much known for slow burn, but I don't think that's necessarily different from 1% of You. 1% of You was also fairly slow burn to me as well. Mariana Zapata, the book is just like 200 pages longer, but it's just as good. So if you have not checked either of them out, do it. Or if you've read one or the other, I really think you will like the other one. So then next up, we have the middle school blueprint, Fault in Our Stars. This is my middle school copy. The pages are very yellow and the book is basically turned into a circle. We all had like okay Instagram handles. I highly suggest you read Full Tilt. This is a duology. The second book is All In. If I'm comparing the two, I think you know what happens. If you have not read either of them, light trigger warning for dealing with cancer. The first book specifically is what most relates to Fault in Our Stars. The second book is more to heal you from all the trauma that happens in this one, and it's kind of more of a second chance thing. But the first book is 100% Fault in Our Stars. It's just spicy Fault in Our Stars. It's not as YA. There's definitely a lot more romance and spice going on than just the YA-ness of Fault in Our Stars. Also, if you've read both of these and want a third suggestion, then I suggest the book Bright Side. Again, they fit together because there's the light trigger warning of cancer, but all three of these books made me bawl. So if you've read any of these and want some more suggestions to make you cry, read any of these other two. I definitely suggest the crap out of them. I've definitely mentioned Full Tilt All In another video before. I believe I've talked about Bright Side in one of my monthly reading wrap-ups, but I've talked about that less, so I'll give you more of a brief overview of that. But Bright Side, our main character goes away to college and she has this boy best friend from back home, but that's all they've ever. They hooked up once in like high school, but it was never anything after that. They kind of like hooked up and then decided that they were better as friends. But they have a really close relationship and they call and FaceTime each other all the time. And our main character meets this boy at a coffee shop and like immediately develops feelings for him. So it's their relationship and her relationship with with her best friend, and the three of them just kind of accepting the truth of her life with cancer. This book is beautiful. Our main character is amazing with her personality and the way that she touches people in their lives. It's beautiful. Read all three of these if you need a good night to cry. If you don't want to cry, don't read them. Sherpa is guarding the book pile. So then next I have the Red Queen series. If you are a fan of the Red Queen series, I would suggest reading The Gilded Ones by Namani Forna. I believe I'm pronouncing that correct. But this is Red Queen, but YA. Red Queen, I feel like to begin with, doesn't have that much spice, but like it's even less in this. Again, it's like they might kiss and that's it. Match for me in the sense of vibe. There are some differences in plot points. Gilded Ones has a lot more magic to it than what Red Queen does. What brings them together is the whole separated by class through blood and magic. So Red Queen, there are silver bloods and red bloods. If you have silver blood, you have these magical powers and you're like the upper class people, royalty, yada yada. Red bloods are just normal people you're looked down on. That's kind of the same thing with the Gilded Ones. There are red bloods and gold. So if you bleed red, you are a normal person, but you want to be a normal person. If you bleed gold, then you have magic, but in this culture, that's bad. You're viewed as like a demon and you basically get killed. With Red Queen, our main character, Mare, she is a red blood, but discovers she has powers later on. Whereas Gilded One, our main character thinks that she has red blood, and when she turns age to go through bleeding, she has gold blood. So she is ripped away from her family to like go be executed. Stuff changes and she finds herself in a war, which is kind of the overarching plot for both of these. So these match on vibe through the whole separation from blood and class system. There is a second book to this that I haven't read. Red Queen is 4 or 5 books. Red Queen also has, which I mentioned again in my previous video, has more of a love triangle situation, so it has a lot more romance. This has romance, but it's definitely a subplot and there's not that much of it. But I do think that they match very well together if you're looking for a Red Queen adjacent, maybe, but a bit more YA. And then finally, my last recommendation is for romance. The Hating Game, the godfather of romance. I suggest that if you like The Hating Game, you should read The Spanish Love Deception. These are both fairly popular books. I feel like most people have read both of them by now, but if you haven't, I've matched together because of vibe and like super specific tropes. So these are both enemies to lovers and workplace romance, and these both have a very like specific wedding scene. The Hating Game, workplace enemies to lovers start fake dating a little bit and like real dating, and they are guests at a wedding together, which parallels to Spanish Love Deception, fake dating to a wedding, workplace romance, enemies to lovers. I will say Spanish Love Deception is a much more spicy version of The Hating Game. In The Hating Game, I feel like just all in all, people like it better than Spanish Love Deception, but I love both of them. So if you have not read either of these, I really think you should give the other a try or read them both if you have not. So yeah, these are my recommendations for books. If you like this, you'll like that. If you guys have any other recommendations that you think will go with any of these other books, like other books that remind you of Akatar, other books that remind you Kingdom of the Wicked, feel free to leave them down in the comments for myself and others. Or if you guys have any specific books you want me to try and find like dupes for, I will take those into my noggin and try and come up with some suggestions for you guys, so leave those down in the comments as well. If you want to follow me in any of my social media, my AC turned on. I'm sorry if there's weird background noise right now. If you want to follow me in any of my social media, it will be linked down below, as well as on my home screen channel banner. Down below is my Amazon wish list. If you guys want to send me any books that are on there, there's always a ton. And also linked down below is my PangoBooks. I have some of the books from this pile, not a lot of them, but I have a few of the books from this pile listed for sale on my Pango. If there's any of these that you want to try now because of a different book it was recommended with, feel free to check on my PangoBooks and buy my used copies or find used copies from other people. It's a much cheaper way of filling up your physical TBR. I love and appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you to all of you guys that wanted to see this type of video. If you guys have any other certain videos specifically you want to see me do, any sort of reading challenges, book recommendations, vlogs, send them my way and I would be more than happy to do those for you guys. But yeah, I love and appreciate you so much. Please stay safe and I will see you guys somewhere else on the internet. Bye.